The blade glinted under the flickering streetlight, a sliver of silver in the darkness, as the masked figure moved silently through the alley. It was a night like any other in the small town of Eldridge, where the air was thick with the scent of rain-soaked asphalt and the distant hum of crickets. But tonight, the shadows seemed to breathe, alive with a tension that prickled the skin. In the heart of Eldridge, a series of disappearances had gripped the community, each more chilling than the last. The townsfolk whispered of a figure cloaked in darkness, a killer who struck when the moon was high and the streets were empty. They spoke in hushed tones, their eyes darting to the corners of their homes as if the very walls could betray them. Megan, a local journalist with a penchant for uncovering the truth, had decided to investigate. She was drawn to the mystery like a moth to a flame, her curiosity igniting a fire within her that she could not extinguish. Armed with nothing but her notebook and a flashlight, she ventured into the very alley where the last victim had been seen. As she stepped into the gloom, the air grew colder, wrapping around her like a shroud. The beam of her flashlight danced across the damp brick walls, illuminating the remnants of a life once lived: a torn scarf, a broken watch, and a single blood-stained shoe. Each item whispered secrets of the past, and Megan felt a chill crawl up her spine. Suddenly, a sound shattered the silence, a soft rustle like the whisper of a breath. She froze, heart pounding, as the shadows shifted. The masked figure emerged, a silhouette against the dim light, the blade glinting ominously. Megan's instincts screamed at her to run, but her feet felt rooted to the ground, paralyzed by fear and fascination. "Who are you?" she managed to choke out, her voice trembling. The figure tilted its head, as if considering her question. "I am the truth," it replied, the voice distorted, echoing in the stillness. "And you, dear journalist, are far too curious for your own good." With that, the figure lunged forward, and Megan barely had time to react. She stumbled back, the flashlight slipping from her grasp and shattering on the ground, plunging her into darkness. Panic surged through her veins as she scrambled to her feet, the echo of footsteps closing in. In a desperate bid for survival, she darted down the alley, her breath coming in ragged gasps. The world around her blurred, the shadows morphing into grotesque shapes that seemed to reach for her. She could hear the figure behind her, relentless, a predator toying with its prey. Megan burst into the street, the cool night air hitting her like a slap. She glanced back, but the figure had vanished, swallowed by the darkness. Heart racing, she stumbled toward her car, fumbling for her keys. The weight of the encounter pressed down on her, a suffocating reminder of the danger lurking in the shadows. As she drove away, the adrenaline coursing through her began to fade, replaced by a gnawing sense of dread. She had uncovered something sinister, but at what cost? The masked figure was not just a killer, it was a harbinger of the town's darkest secrets, a reflection of the fears that lay buried beneath the surface. Days turned into weeks, and the disappearances continued. Each time, Megan found herself drawn back to the alley, compelled to uncover the truth. She interviewed the townsfolk, piecing together fragments of stories that hinted at a deeper darkness, a history of betrayal, jealousy, and revenge that had festered for generations. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across the town, Megan received an anonymous tip. The message was simple: "Meet me where the shadows linger." Her heart raced as she recognized the location, the very alley where she had first encountered the masked figure. Against her better judgment, she returned, the weight of her decision heavy on her shoulders. The air was thick with anticipation, and the darkness seemed to pulse around her. She clutched her flashlight, the beam cutting through the gloom, illuminating the remnants of the past. "Show yourself," she called out, her voice echoing off the walls. The silence that followed was deafening, and for a moment, she thought she was alone. But then, a figure stepped from the shadows, the mask obscuring its face. Megan's heart raced as she recognized the voice. "You shouldn't have come back," it said, the tone chillingly familiar. "Who are you?" she demanded, her voice steady despite the fear clawing at her insides. The figure took a step closer, and the beam of her flashlight caught a glimpse of the eyes behind the mask, eyes she knew all too well. "I'm someone who knows the truth," it replied, the mask slipping slightly to reveal a familiar smirk. Megan's breath caught in her throat as realization dawned. The masked figure was not a stranger. It was someone she had trusted, someone who had been feeding her information all along. "Why?" she whispered, the betrayal cutting deeper than any blade. "Because the truth is a weapon, and you were too blind to see it," the figure replied, stepping into the light. You wanted a story, Megan, but stories have consequences. In that moment, the weight of her investigation crashed down on her. The disappearances were not random, they were orchestrated, a twisted game played by someone who thrived on chaos. As the figure lunged forward, Megan's instincts kicked in. She turned to run, but the alley was a labyrinth of shadows and the walls seemed to close in around her. She could hear the figure's footsteps behind her, relentless and unforgiving. In a desperate bid for escape, she ducked into a side passage, her heart pounding in her chest. The darkness enveloped her, and she pressed herself against the cold brick wall, trying to silence her breath. But the figure was close, too close. You can't hide from the truth, Megan, it taunted, the voice echoing in the confined space. With a surge of adrenaline, she bolted from her hiding place, racing toward the street. The night air hit her like a wave, and she sprinted toward her car, the engine still warm from her earlier escape. As she fumbled with the keys, she could feel the figure closing in, the shadows stretching toward her like grasping hands. Just as she managed to unlock the door, a hand shot out, grabbing her wrist with a vice-like grip. "Stop running," it hissed, the mask inches from her face. "You can't escape what you've uncovered." With a surge of strength, Megan twisted free, diving into the car and slamming the door shut. She fumbled for the ignition, her hands shaking as she turned the key. The engine roared to life and she peeled away from the curb, leaving the figure behind in a cloud of dust and darkness. But as she drove, the weight of the encounter settled heavily on her chest. The truth she had sought was now a burden, a darkness that would follow her wherever she went. In the days that followed, Megan tried to piece her life back together, but the shadows lingered, whispering secrets she could not ignore. The masked figure had become a part of her story, a haunting reminder of the dangers that lurked in the pursuit of truth. And as she lay in bed each night, the darkness creeping in around her, she couldn't shake the feeling that the figure was still watching, waiting for the moment when she would slip back into the shadows. The truth, she realized, was not just a weapon, it was a curse, and she was forever bound to it.